In their issue, The 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, Rolling Stone wrote, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the most important rock and roll album ever made. An unsurpassed adventure in concept, sound, songwriting, cover art, and studio recording by the greatest rock and roll band of all time. Today I'm going to inform you about the Beatles' 1967 album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I'll start by talking about what led up to the album being recorded, the music that's featured on the album, and why it is thought of as so influential. So, in 1965, the Beatles became more concerned with recording in the studio rather than performing for a live audience. That started on their album Rubber Soul. It continued through their next album Revolver, released in 1966, and eventually led up to Sgt. Pepper being recorded. Another factor that led to Sgt. Pepper's recording was the Beatles' decision to quit touring. They stopped touring in 1966, and this allowed them to have unlimited time in the studio to record an album. And they also did not have to worry about recording an album that needed to be performed live for an audience. So they were freed up to use all sorts of instruments, from classical instruments to horns to Eastern Indian instruments as well. And then the third thing that led to Sgt. Pepper was the Beach Boys' 1966 album, Pet Sounds. According to IMDb.com, Beatles producer George Martin once said, "Without Pet Sounds, Sgt. Pepper wouldn't have happened. Pepper was an attempt to equal Pet Sounds." So, Pepper wouldn't have been as important as it's thought of today if the music itself on the album wasn't good. There are 13 tracks on the album, and they all feature a different variety of music. There's rock and roll in the title track, there's pop and With a Little Help from My Friends, there's psychedelic music in Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and then there's Eastern Indian music in Within You and Without You, and Music Hall with When I'm 64. So, and the few other songs on the album also feature a combination of all these types of genres. And then the album itself was framed as a concept album by using the title track twice on the album. And this gave the illusion of a performance by the fictional Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band. Another thing that they did with the album was connect up all the tracks. So instead of having 2 or 3 seconds between each track, there'd be just a continuous flow of music. And that kind of helped keep the continuity of the album together. Now, while it may not have been a pure concept album, since the concept only related to 3 tracks, it did have certain themes on it. As the BeatlesBible.com writes, "At the core of Sgt. Pepper is the sound of the Beatles' English background, with tales of runaway girls, circus attractions, Isle of Wight cottages, domestic violence, home improvement, Daily Mail news stories, memories of school days, and favorite childhood literature." So all that music led up to it being thought of as an influential album. One of the things that really was the influence was the idea of a concept album. Many concept albums have come after Sgt. Pepper was released. Here on this chart you can see you got The Who, Tommy by The Who, Ziggy Stardust by David Bowie, Dark Side of the Moon, one of Pink Floyd's many concept albums, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, and then more recent albums within the last century or so, or 21st century. You got American Idiot by Green Day, and then To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. And as Jody Rosen writes on Slate.com, "What cannot be denied is Sgt. Pepper's influence on subsequent rock and soul concept albums that were released. There would have been no Dark Side of the Moon or any sort of Dragons and Warlocks themed prog rock epics had the Beatles not decided to don those silly uniforms for their Lark of a Cover album and impersonate a vaudeville band." So today I informed you about the Beatles' 1967 album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I talked about what led up to the album being recorded, the music on the album, and why it's thought of as influential. And all those reasons is why Sgt. Pepper is thought of as the greatest rock and roll album of all time. Okay, here's the audience.